Do you accept injustice or do you rewrite the law? I chose rewriting the law.
Amanda Nguyen is the founder of civil rights startup Rise and is a Nobel Peace Prize nominee for her work on behalf of sexual assault survivors. She was forced to navigate intense legal barriers after surviving rape, but she penned her own civil rights into existence when she passed the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights. I sat down with Amanda to discuss her playbook for change and why her fight for social justice is far from over.
The worst thing that happened to me wasn't being raped. It was being betrayed by a broken criminal justice system. In the beginning, it was just about survival. In moments of trauma, it's this fight or flight situation. And for me, it was, okay, so I found out that my rape kit could be destroyed in 6 months before even being tested in Massachusetts. What was I going to do about it? So I remember walking into my local area rape crisis center and there weren't enough seats for us in the waiting room. And I thought to myself, if I have a Harvard law professor as my attorney, she's one of the best in the nation, and we're still struggling this hard, what is everybody else doing without my resources? And that's when I realized, okay, it's rewriting the law. Anger can fuel, but it cannot sustain movements. It's hope. It's having something to look towards, and it's having, quite frankly, return on investment of your energy and your effort. And so to that end, we developed a Sexual Assault Survivor Bill of Rights, which had and has some key components, very common sense, basic civil rights. It includes the right to not have your kit be destroyed before the statute of limitations, the right to be notified of your rights, the right to have access to your own medical record, very, very basic. And it ended up passing unanimously through the United States Congress.
You've talked a lot about early on that when you went to see lawmakers and the like, that you were dismissed very quickly. How did you not let that defeat you?
I didn't have the political luxury of a cathartic performance. I had a deadline on my justice. I had 6 months until my rape kit, my evidence, my justice would slip through my fingers. And because of that, it was efficiency. It was efficiency of civil rights that had to be codified, that drove the momentum of the campaign. There were many times in which I sat across from politicians and I had to see the humanity in them when they might not have seen the humanity in me. And that is the reality. It's a very brutal reality. But because we practice what I call radical empathy, so the ability to climb over these very uncomfortable walls and sit there and listen to someone else's point of view and to treat them not as a demon, but as a human who has a whole history, who has their own perspective, their own beliefs, and to say, I am meeting you where you are, I see you, that is so much more effective than just screaming at them, because you won't be able to get it done.
You talk a lot about this need to build consensus and build community around a vision that you set out to create. Talk a little bit about what you've learned in terms of building bridges, particularly because we're living in a very polarized time.
I think what is really helpful is to understand what you actually want. Do you want to feel good by raging about something? Or do you want to actually change something? If you espouse the principles of being tolerant, then one must be tolerant to many different views, to all views. Yes, there are some views that are just outright wrong. That's correct. But if you want to change their opinion, you must see the humanity in them.
Talk a little bit about when you felt most despondent while trying to move these efforts forward and how you learned to keep continuing forward in spite of the obstacles.
I think back to moments where, I almost felt like giving up. The first time that I lobbied, it was, 6 hours straight of me telling people who did not care why I deserved civil rights. And I went home and I cried. And I remember just being like, God, I just need one person to tell me that they love me. And then the next morning, as a pathological optimist, it is kind of required for this work, I got up And I did the same thing this time in the United States Senate. And in my ride to the Senate, I met this father, the Uber driver. He was kind of stoic, didn't really talk to me, but at the end he saw I was going to the Senate, so he told me, he asked me why, and I told him, and this stranger just completely started crying. Tears just welled up out of his eyes, and he turned to me and he said, "My daughter is a rape survivor, and what you went through, she also went through too." And when he stopped the car, he said, "Can I shake your hand? Thank you so much for fighting for her. Has anyone told you that they love you today? I love you." And I'll never forget that, Dad. And so for activists out there who I know how difficult it is to convince someone you deserve human rights, just know that there are so many more people who care about what you're doing, even more than just the direct people who are impacted by it.